My MIL pushed me down the stairs because I refused to name my baby after her. I was 7 months pregnant, standing at the top of my mother-in-law Diane's staircase when she cornered me about baby names. So, are you finally going to tell me what you're naming my granddaughter, or do I have to keep guessing? She had been making little comments like this all night, and I kept dodging because I knew she wasn't going to like the answer. My husband Blake and I had already decided on Rose after my grandmother who raised me while my parents were going through their divorce. Now there was no escaping telling her. We're naming her Rose. She repeated it back to me like the word physically disgusted her. Rose, not Diane? The name means everything to me. I carried Blake for 9 months. She cut me off. I raised him by myself after his father walked out. I gave up everything for that boy, and you can't even give me this one thing? It's not personal, Diane. It's my grandmother's name. Diane laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. Your grandmother. Some woman I never met matters more than the woman who created your husband? That's not what I meant, I stuttered out. Then what do you mean? Because it sounds like you're telling me I don't matter. That 32 years of sacrifice mean nothing to you. Her voice was getting louder, and I made the mistake of saying, let's talk about this later when you've calmed down. Calm down? You're standing in my house telling me my name isn't good enough for your disgusting baby and I need to calm down? She stepped closer and I stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. Just the stairs behind me. You know what I think? I think you've been trying to push me out since the day you met Blake. You want him all to yourself. You want to erase me completely. Diane, that's not true. Please understand where I'm coming from with this. I could feel the sweat beads on my forehead. Then prove it. Change the name. Diane, you can't ask me to do that. Her eyes went cold in a way I'd never seen before. Wrong answer. Before I knew it, her hand was on my chest and she pushed me hard and I lost my balance and started falling. I grabbed at nothing. My hip cracked against the stairs and my arms wrapped around my belly because my brain could only scream one thing: protect the baby. When I hit the bottom, the wind left my body and I just lay there staring up at 40 frozen faces. Diane was still at the top with her arm extended, and for half a second I saw it. Satisfaction. Like she did exactly what she meant to do. Then it vanished and she came rushing down the stairs sobbing. Oh my God, she slipped. I tried to grab her. Someone called 911. Blake pushed through the crowd and dropped to his knees beside me. Baby, are you okay? Can you move? Is the baby okay? Diane was right behind him, wailing about how scared she was and how she tried to catch me, and I couldn't take it anymore. She pushed me, Blake. She pushed me. The crying stopped. Diane stared at me with this wounded animal expression. Blake, do you hear this? Do you hear what she's accusing me of? She grabbed his arm and her voice went high and hysterical. I would never hurt my grandbaby. I tried to catch her. She's confused, Blake. She hit her head. She doesn't know what she's saying. Nobody said anything. Blake looked between us like he was watching his whole world split in half. Mom, just give her some space. Oh my gosh, how is this happening to me? She wailed as she went to sit down on the couch. The ambulance came. Blake rode with me, holding my hand the whole way. He kept asking if I was okay and telling me everything was going to be fine. But he had this look that told me he couldn't figure out which version of the story to believe. At the hospital, they hooked me up to monitors, and after what felt like forever, we got news that the baby was okay. I started crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Blake cried too. He kept whispering, thank God, over and over, and I thought, okay, now he believes me. Now he sees what his mom really is. But then he asked me what really happened up there. I told him again. He went quiet for a long time, and my stomach started sinking. She was upset about the name, I know that. But she wouldn't physically hurt you? You probably lost your balance. Blake, she put her hand on my chest and she pushed me. He squeezed my hand like he was trying to comfort me through my own delusion. You're exhausted and you just went through something traumatic. Maybe your brain turned her reaching for you into something else. I could see it in his eyes. He needed this to not be true. He needed his mother to still be the person he thought she was. And I was so tired. The monitors kept beeping and my hip was throbbing, and our daughter's heartbeat filled the room, and I just wanted it all to stop. So I said maybe it happened fast. Maybe I wasn't totally sure what I felt. Blake's whole body relaxed, and he kissed my forehead. Let's just focus on the baby being okay. I let him believe it, because I didn't have the fight left in me to force him to see something he was desperate to unsee. That night, I lay awake in the hospital bed, with my hand on my belly, replaying it over and over, her palm flat against my chest, the half second of nothing beneath my feet. I knew what I felt, and I knew Diane was at home right now, calling every family member, rehearsing her version until it sounded like the truth. By morning, the story would become something I couldn't recognize anymore. I had maybe 12 hours before her lie became the only thing anyone remembered. By the next morning, Diane's version had already spread. I woke up to 17 text messages from people I'd met maybe twice. Blake's aunt asking if I was feeling better after my fall. His cousin saying she heard I'd been struggling emotionally and hoped I was getting help. Another cousin saying Diane had called her at midnight crying about how worried she was about me and the baby. Not worried that she pushed me. Worried about me. Like I was the problem. I called Blake's aunt because I needed to hear exactly what Diane was saying. Oh, honey, she's just so worried about you. She told me you've been hormonal and erratic this whole pregnancy. That poor woman was sobbing on the phone saying she doesn't know what she did wrong. She said Blake's been struggling with your mood swings for months and she's been trying to support him through it. And then to be accused of something so horrible in her own home? She made a tisking sound. She asked me if I thought you were stable enough to be a mother. She's not trying to be cruel, sweetheart. She's genuinely scared for that baby. I couldn't feel my hands. She said that? That she's scared for my baby? She's just concerned, we all are. You know there's no shame in getting help. I hung up and immediately called my sister Val and rambled on. Listen, Marie, she said sternly when I finished. You need to get Blake's head out of his ass before this baby comes or you're going to be co-parenting with that woman for 18 years. Screenshot every text. Record every conversation. This is only going to get worse. In the moment I was thinking, how worse could this possibly get? I didn't know just how worse it could get. When Blake got home that night, I was ready. We need to talk about what your mother is telling people. He sighed and set his keys down. I already talked to her today. She's really hurt by all this. My jaw actually fell. She's hurt? Blake? She's telling your entire family that I'm mentally unstable. She told your aunt she's worried I'm not fit to be a mother. That's not what she said. She's just worried about you, about the stress you've been under. What exactly did she say to you? He sat down across from me and his whole face softened. She was winning him over. She told me about her childhood. Her mom abandoned her when she was 6. She just left a note and never came back. She grew up feeling like she didn't matter to anyone, like she was invisible. And then she had me and finally she felt like she existed, like she meant something. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I could see where this was going and I wanted to scream. She said naming the baby Diane would have meant she finally mattered enough to be remembered. He reached for my hand. She said she feels like you've never respected her place in this family, like you've been trying to push her out since we got engaged. Did she talk about the push at all? She said she would never hurt you. That you know that. That's not an answer. She said she reached for you when you started to fall. She said she's been replaying it in her head over and over and she doesn't understand how you could think she'd ever hurt her own grandchild. I pulled my hand back from his. So she spent the whole conversation crying about her childhood and never once talked about what she actually did to me. She talked about it. She said she didn't do it. And you believe her. I believe she had a terrible childhood and loves her son and made a mistake in how she reacted to the name thing. But I don't believe she pushed you. I can't believe that. If I believe that, then everything I know about my mother is a lie. There it was. The truth underneath all of it. He couldn't believe me because believing me would break something inside him. And Diane knew that. She'd spent 32 years building herself into the center of his world. The sacrificing mother. The abandoned child who gave everything for her son. She wasn't just denying the push. She was making it impossible for Blake to see the push without destroying his entire foundation. She's telling your family I'm mentally unfit to be a mother. She's just scared. She thinks you're going to take me away from her. The heir left the room. You're defending the woman who almost took our daughter away from us. He stood up and grabbed his keys off the counter. I can't do this tonight. Diane was making a plan, but she had also made a mistake. She thought I'd keep the peace and let this go. What she didn't know was that something changed in me when I hit the bottom of those stairs. She wasn't dealing with the woman who married her son anymore. She was dealing with a mother. And I was done waiting for anyone to believe me. If I wanted the truth to come out, I was going to have to find it myself. Someone at her house saw something. Someone always sees something. Tomorrow I was going to start making calls. The next morning I started making calls. Blake's cousin Jan had been at the party, and she was the only one who hadn't texted me with fake concern or asking if I was getting help. So I figured I could trust her. I sent her a message asking if we could talk and she called me within 10 minutes. I was wondering when you'd reach out, she said. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know if you wanted to hear from anyone in the family right now. I need to know if anyone saw what happened at the stairs. She went quiet and I could hear her breathing. I didn't see the push, she finally said. I felt helpless at that. I didn't know how I was going to win this war. But then Jan spoke. But I saw her face right before you fell. Her expression, Marie. She stopped. She didn't look shocked when you went down. She looked satisfied, like she'd done exactly what she meant to do. Then it was gone, and she was rushing down crying. I actually felt relief at that because I saw it too. I wasn't crazy. Would you tell Blake that? She laughed bitterly. He won't believe me. None of them ever do. What do you mean? When I was 16, Diane told everyone I stole $200 from her purse at a family barbecue. I didn't take it, but she was so convincing, crying and shaking and saying she couldn't believe her own niece would do this to her. Jan's voice got tight. My parents believed her. They grounded me the whole summer and made me get a job to pay her back for money I never took. If she'd lied about Jan at 16, lying about me now was nothing to her. She probably still believes I took it to this day. Jan sighed heavily. She decides something happened, and then it becomes real to her. Doesn't matter what actually went down. I felt sick that a person like this was my mother-in-law and grandmother to my future daughter. When Blake got home, I showed him everything. Jan's text about the expression on Diane's face, the story about the money, the warning about her delusion. He read through it all twice, and his face changed in a way I hadn't seen before. Not defensive, not making excuses, shaken. He sat there staring at his phone like he was seeing his mother for the first time. I wanted to feel like I'd won something, but all I felt was scared. If Jan was right about the pattern, then this wasn't going to end with Diane crying on the phone to relatives. This was going to get worse. 2 days later, my phone rang and Diane's name stared back at me. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I thought she was actually going to apologize. Maybe I just didn't want to give her another reason to call me difficult. She skipped the pleasantries altogether and said, "I know you've been talking to Jan." My jaw clenched. "I know you're digging around, trying to turn my own family against me. I'm just trying to get people to see the truth." "The truth?" She laughed. "The truth is that you fell down the stairs and decided to blame me because you've never liked me. You're trying to steal my son from me, and I won't let that happen." Then her voice got cold and dark. "I know things about postpartum depression, Marie. I know how to describe the symptoms. I know exactly what CPS looks for when they get a call about an unstable new mother." I couldn't move for a second. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you. You want to keep playing this game? Keep asking questions. Keep turning people against me. And I will make sure you never have a moment alone with that baby." I could hear the smile on her face as she told me, "I'll call every agency, I'll talk to every doctor, I'll make sure everyone knows how erratic and paranoid you've been. Blake already told me about your mood swings, your crying, and your obsessive worrying." She hummed low. "It paints quite a picture, doesn't it?" My hands were shaking, but I didn't cower away. "Listen to me, Diane. If you ever threaten me or my daughter again, I'll make sure Blake hears every word you just said." She chuckled condescendingly. "Who do you think he's going to believe, sweetheart? His mother who's loved him for 32 years? Or the woman who accused her of trying to hurt her grandbaby?" She hung up and the silence filled the room. She'd actually said it out loud. Threatened to call CPS. Threatened to take my baby. And she did it over the phone because she knew I couldn't prove it. No witnesses. No recording. Just her word against mine like always. And if she was already thinking about CPS, then she'd probably already started laying the groundwork. The question wasn't whether Diane was coming for my baby. It was how much of a head start she already had. And that thought terrified me. 2 weeks passed with nothing. No calls, no texts, no Diane showing up at my door with a new threat wrapped in a smile. The silence should have felt like relief, but it just made everything worse. I tried to focus on getting ready for the baby, washing the tiny clothes and folding them into the dresser we'd painted pink, setting up the crib and hanging the little mobile with the stars and moons that played a lullaby when you wound it up. Normal things, safe things, but every creak in the house made me flinch. Every time a car slowed down outside, I'd find myself at the window. Blake said maybe his mom was finally thinking about what she'd done, but I saw him checking his phone constantly, waiting for something he wouldn't admit he was waiting for. At my baby shower, Val made sure it was just my side of the family, no one from Blake's side. But the whole time I kept watching the door, expecting Diane to walk in with that calm smile that means she's about to detonate. Val caught me looking and squeezed my hand and told me things would be okay. I tried to smile, but my face wouldn't let me because I knew this wasn't over. Diane doesn't let things go. She doesn't forgive and she doesn't forget. She just waits. 3 weeks later, I was at my OB appointment, and something felt off the second I walked in. The receptionist, who usually smiled and asked how I was feeling, barely looked at me. She just checked me in and told me to wait without making eye contact. I sat in the waiting room with my hand on my belly trying to figure out what changed. Maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe I was being paranoid. But then I noticed one of the nurses glancing at me from behind the desk and looking away when I caught her. By the time they called my name, my stomach was in knots, and it had nothing to do with the baby. The appointment itself was fine. Baby was healthy, heartbeat strong, 2 to 3 weeks until my due date. But when we finished, my doctor asked if she could speak to me privately for a moment. She closed the door and sat down across from me with this careful expression on her face. "I need to tell you something and I want you to stay calm." My whole body went cold. "Is something wrong with the baby?" "No. The baby is perfect. This is about something else." She paused like she was choosing her words carefully. "We've received several calls over the past 2 weeks from someone claiming to be a concerned family member. They've been asking questions about your mental health history, whether you've shown signs of instability or paranoia during your pregnancy, whether you've had any psychiatric episodes." I couldn't breathe for a second. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. We don't release patient information to anyone. But I wanted you to know because the calls have been persistent and specific. Whoever this is seems to be trying to build some kind of case." I knew exactly who it was. I didn't even have to guess. "I need to put a password on my file. No information goes to anyone including family without that password." My doctor nodded. I was going to suggest the same thing. I'm also documenting these calls in your chart in case you need a record later. I thanked her and walked out of that office with my hands shaking. Diane wasn't just talking anymore. She was making moves. 2 days later, my boss called me into her office. She looked confused and a little uncomfortable. I got a strange call this morning. Someone claiming to be a friend of yours. They asked if you'd seemed erratic or unstable at work lately. They mentioned you were pregnant and suggested someone should check on you. My jaw clenched. Did they leave a name? No. They said they wanted to stay anonymous because they didn't want to upset you. But they were very insistent that I should be watching for warning signs. She looked at me carefully. Is everything okay? Is someone harassing you? I told her it was a family issue, and I was handling it. She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. That's what Diane wanted. She didn't need anyone to believe her completely. She just needed to plant seeds, get people asking questions, create a trail of concerned calls so that later if anyone investigated, they'd find a pattern of people expressing worry about my mental state. I called Val on my way home and told her everything. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said she'd been doing some digging. She'd reached out to Blake's aunt, the one who'd asked if I was feeling better after my fall. She told me Diane has been calling her every week crying about you, saying you've been having psychotic episodes, saying she's terrified for her grandbaby. I pulled over because I couldn't drive and hear this at the same time. There's more, Val said. She asked the aunt if she'd be willing to be a character witness. If something happens. Those were her exact words. If something happens. I sat there in my parked car staring at nothing. Diane wasn't just trying to make me look crazy. She was recruiting people, getting witnesses lined up for whatever she was planning. When Blake got home, I sat him down and told him all of it. The calls to my doctor, the call to my work, what his aunt told Val. I watched his face change as I talked. First confusion, then disbelief, then something I'd never seen on him before. Fear. She's trying to take the baby, he said quietly. I didn't say anything. I just let him sit with it. He pulled out his phone and called her. I watched him put it on speaker. She answered on the second ring, all sweet and warm. Hi, honey. I've missed your voice. Mom, have you been calling Marie's doctor? Silence. A long one. Then her voice came back different. Careful. I'm just worried about the baby. You know your wife hasn't been stable. You've told me yourself how emotional and paranoid she's been. Blake hung up. He sat there staring at his phone with his face pale. I realized then what had happened. Blake had been venting to his mother the way he always did, telling her I was tired and emotional and worried about the birth. Normal pregnancy stuff. And Diane had taken every word and turned it into ammunition. She didn't call back. She didn't text. I almost wished she would because the silence was worse. That night, Blake went to check the mail and came back holding a single envelope from his mom. He handed it to me and I opened it. Inside was a piece of paper with neat handwriting. Blue ink. The letters slightly slanted to the right. It said, all you had to do was name her after me. Enjoy these last weeks together. I read it 3 times. My hand started shaking so hard the paper rattled. Blake took it from me and read it, and I watched his face go white. Neither of us said anything for a long time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there with my hand on my belly, feeling my baby's kick and thinking about that note. Diane had walked up to our house, put that envelope in our mailbox with her own hands. While we were inside living our lives, she was right there, close enough to touch our door. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wanted me to know she could get to me whenever she wanted. The birth was 2 weeks away, maybe less. And Diane had made it clear she wasn't going to miss it. I went into labor at 39 weeks on a Friday morning. My water broke in the kitchen while I was making toast, and for a second I just stood there staring at the puddle on the floor, thinking this is it. Blake drove me to the hospital going 20 over the speed limit the whole way. When we got there, Blake reminded the nurses that his mom was not allowed in under any circumstances before I could. Her name is Diane. If she shows up, you call security. Don't talk to her. Don't let her talk to anyone. Just get her out. The nurse looked a little startled by his tone but nodded and made a note. He turned to me and took my face in his hands. She's not getting anywhere near you, I promise. I finally felt supported throughout this whole thing. After the note his mom left, he completely changed his tune and admitted to himself that his mom was a cruel person. 6 hours into labor, I was gripping Blake's hand through contractions that felt like my whole body was being torn apart from the inside. The pain came in waves that made it impossible to think about anything else. I'd squeeze Blake's fingers until I could feel his bones grinding together, and he never complained once. He just kept telling me that I was doing amazing, and our Rose was almost here. Then I heard yelling. It was distant at first, coming from somewhere down the hall. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew that voice. I'd know it anywhere. Blake's head snapped toward the door. No, 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 no! The yelling got louder. She was screaming about her rights, about her grandbaby, yelled that we were keeping her away from her own family. Blake was out the door before I could stop him. Another contraction hit, and I couldn't do anything but grip the bed rails and try to breathe. I could hear Blake's voice now mixing with Diane's. His was low and hard. Hers was high and hysterical. You need to leave. Right now. Blake, honey, I'm just worried about the baby. You know she's not stable. You've told me yourself. I said leave. I'm your mother. I have every right to be here when my grandchild is born. You have no rights. You lost them when you pushed my pregnant wife down the stairs. I didn't push her. She fell. Why won't anyone believe me? I'm being treated like a criminal when all I've done is love this family. You threatened to call CPS on her. You called her doctor. You called her job. You left a note in our mailbox telling her to enjoy her last weeks with our baby. You're not a concerned grandmother. You're a stalker. How dare you speak to me like that? After everything I sacrificed for you. I gave up my entire life for you, Blake, and this is how you repay me? By choosing her over your own mother? Yes, I'm choosing her. I'm choosing my wife and my daughter. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't leave this hospital, I will call the police myself. The nurse came back in looking shaken. Ma'am, your husband is handling it, but she's asking to speak to a social worker. She's telling people you've threatened to hurt yourself. I laughed. Actually laughed even though another contraction was building. Of course she is. 20 minutes later, a woman in a blazer came in and introduced herself as a social worker. She said she had to do a wellness check based on concerns that had been reported. What concerns? I asked through gritted teeth. Someone claimed you have a history of mental illness and have threatened to harm yourself. They said your husband is too afraid of you to speak up. Blake came back in right then. His face was red and his hands were shaking. That someone is my mother, and she's lying. She's been harassing my wife for months. She's been calling her doctors and her workplace trying to make her look crazy. Every single thing she told you is a lie. The social worker looked at me. Is this true? All of it. Check my medical records. Check the notes from my OB. It's all documented. I put a password on my file because she was calling pretending to be family. She looked at my nurse. Has she shown any signs of instability? None. She's been completely calm and cooperative. The only problem we've had is the woman in the waiting room. Then we heard Diane again. Louder this time. Screaming. You can't make me leave. That's my grandbaby. She's poisoned all of you against me. You don't know what she's really like. Security had arrived. Ma'am, you need to come with us. Don't touch me. I'm not going anywhere. Blake, don't do this to me. I'm your mother. I'm your mother. Her voice cracked into something that didn't sound human. She's going to destroy you. She's going to take that baby and leave you with nothing. I'm trying to save you. I heard scuffling. Heard her screaming about lawyers and rights and how everyone would be sorry. This isn't over. Do you hear me? This isn't over. Her voice got further and further away until finally there was nothing. She screamed all the way to the parking lot. Blake came back to my bedside. His eyes were wet. He took my hand and pressed his forehead against mine. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. I didn't have the energy to respond because another contraction hit and suddenly it was time to push. Rose was born at 12:01 that night. They put her on my chest and she was so warm and so small and everything else just stopped. Blake was crying. I was crying. She had dark hair and tiny fingers, and when she opened her eyes and looked at me, I forgot Diane existed. I forgot the screaming and the threats and the months of fear. It was just us. Me and Blake and Rose. Our daughter. Named after my grandmother who raised me. The woman who made me feel like I mattered. Diane didn't get to take that. She didn't get to take anything. Not anymore. Blake and I filed a restraining order 3 days later.